Welcome back to the Turtle Optimist podcast. Today we're exploring the profound power of human connection with a guest who's taken it upon themselves to redefine what it means to connect in our increasingly isolated world. Imagine setting a goal to connect with a new person every single day for the entire year. Ambitious, right? Well, that's exactly what our guest is doing. We'll be unpacking the inspiration behind this extraordinary connection project. Get ready to be inspired and maybe even a little bit challenged to look at the world and the people in it a little differently. Let's welcome Lorine. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm really glad you're here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me, Jenny. I'm Lorine Hoffer, or Lori. I use both, and other people are welcome to as well. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, which is a very intense place to live.
Mhm.
And I did come up with this connection project. It's a personal project as opposed to a project based on the work I do. A lot of the work that I do is related to connection in many ways, connection to self and others. But this project that I came up with is definitely a personal project, and it is really no way about my business.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. So you and I, actually a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, referred me to you for your connection project. And it was great to connect with you. And so I'm just curious, what inspired you to embark on the ambitious connection project that you're doing, especially for 2025, and the goal of connecting with someone new every day? And can you kind of give us like a little bit of a sense of how you came to it, and also, yeah, just what it is?
Sure. Well, I call it my 2025 and 2025 connection project, partly because it sounds fun. The idea is for me to connect with at least 365 people, a different person each day of the year, for at least 2,025 minutes of connection. Now, at first thought, that sounds like a lot, but that's really only about 6 minutes a day. And honestly, Jenny, I've already blown through that number. I'm at close to 3,000 hours and we're in the middle of.
Wow.
So that's really awesome. One of the reasons I did it that way because I want it to feel really accessible for people. I wanted it to be more than micro connections, which people may or may not have heard of. The idea of micro connections is when, you see a stranger and you smile at them or you say hello, just these really tiny little brief moments. But I also didn't want it to feel like a big weight or a huge ask of people to, let's come and spend an hour talking, because for a lot of people that may feel overwhelming or unsure, or they're not, So I came up with this idea of mini connections, with the idea of the appointments that I do schedule them as appointments,
Mhm.
partly so that I can keep them straight in my own calendar.
Mhm.
The idea is that there are these 15 minutes appointment, 15 minutes, of intent. I call it intentional, consensual, time together. So most of them have gone longer than that. And I have a few questions when people sign up that ask them essentially, do you want to meet? Like, are you like 15 minutes is my limit? Do you want to meet for longer? There's no expectation, that's not like one is better than the other. It's really just about kind of meeting people where they are with it.
Mhm. That's great. Yeah, and I'm sure that you're meeting a lot of people from all different places and just different backgrounds. So that's really awesome.
And one of the joys for me with it is, like I said, I set it up as a personal project. So some of the first people I reached out to are people who I already know, who maybe they're people I talk to regularly. Maybe they're people who I've known for a long time. And, life gets in the way of people sometimes spending intentional time together. Um, and so it's been really fun to reconnect with people I already know. It's also been a joy to connect a bit more deeply with people who I call it like that I know-ish.
Hmm.
Maybe they're people who I'm in a parent group with, or people who I'm in a Facebook group where I recognize their name. Maybe I even recognize their face, but we've never really spent time together.
Hmm.
And then one of my biggest joys and hopes as I went in, and it is happening, is that I am getting to have conversations with people who I don't know at all.
Hmm.
Just like you and I, Jenny, right?
Yep.
Somebody attached to us and you were game. It's
Yep.
the idea is for there to be a sense of sort of curiosity and playfulness in it.
Hmm.
Conversations aren't, I like to say they're about more than the weather, but we don't have to like deep dive into, into all the stuff. Um, I also like to say that they're much more about who we are than what we do,
Hmm.
because I don't know about where other people live, but particularly in the DC area, when you meet people, so much of what they want to know is what do you do, right?
Hmm.
Like, what's your job? And I love people and I love learning about who they are,
Hmm.
regardless of how they show up to make money or, those types of things in the world.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I used to live in DC, and that's exactly right. That was my experience as well. And when I moved away, uh, it was interesting because it was almost like ingrained in me to when someone asked me about me, the first thing I would talk about was my job. And it took a while to kind of separate the two. And I think that a lot of people find identity in that. And at the same time, we are more than our jobs, our vocation. So that's really great.
Yeah. And you make an interesting point in that, Jenny, because one thing that I notice as well is when you ask people, even if you ask people like, how are things? What's going on for you? One of the first things that we as humans often do is reply about our job, or if we have kids, or if we have pets, or our family.
Mhm.
And what we're not replying about is actually self, right?
Right.
Like who we are. And to me, that is one sort of nod indicator to sort of this disconnection that we tend to feel with self.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to the intentionality of you setting these appointments to meet with people and to talk about them, or you
Yeah.
instead of all of the other things on the peripheral. So that's great. It really is.
Yeah, and it's fun. And I mean, sometimes we talk about all kinds of things. There's no real rules with this project. Really, my rule is we set a time because then it's intentional and consensual, right? Like we both agree. I like to say like I shop at Trader Joe's and I love to chat up my cashiers there and we have little conversations. But I don't count those as my connection for the day because they don't know they're a part of it. So
Hmm.
I really wanted it to be a mutual exchange, like I said, intentional and consensual,
Hmm.
as a piece of this project.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So I know that when you and I met originally for our connection, and
Mhm.
it kind of led to this project, you had mentioned that you had a 2020 letter writing project. And so I'm wondering if you could explain what that is. And then also you had mentioned that it felt one-sided. So how did that experience shape your approach to the connection in this current project?
Absolutely. So, the couple of years before 2020 were a roller coaster of plot twists in my own life. And so I went into 2020. I had at the end of the year, I just had this idea. One thing that I notice in the work that I do, and just in all of my relationships with people, and really in watching the media as well, is how often we wait essentially until people die to say the nice things,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
And then people, and then, somebody will die and you'll see somebody talk about, oh gosh, I wish I'd told them whatever. I wish I'd told them whatever. And so I went into 2020 with this idea to write a note each day to somebody. Many of them were people I knew. Some of them were people I didn't know. And it was a handwritten note.
Hmm.
I like to text and use chat and use technology as much as anyone, but there is a joy and a gift in a handwritten note and the intentionality that
Mhm.
it takes to sit down and be present and really write something to someone.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would mail them or hand deliver them in some cases, but most of them were mailed because a lot of it wasn't to people who were local. And
Mhm.
it turned out to be so incredible that I had chosen this for myself for the year because, of course, 2020 was also when the pandemic came and sort of things really closed down. And so there wasn't a lot of interaction with other humans outside, for a lot of people outside of kind of um, their pods. There was
Uh-huh.
a lot of isolation. So it was a really amazing way for me to remain feeling sort of, I guess I think of it as like spreading the love,
Mhm.
but it's like the agape love, right? I don't know about you, Jenny. I have always loved to write letters.
Mhm.
And I've always thought of letters, though letters were always kind of like an ongoing conversation to me, right? Like you write something and then you maybe ask questions of the other person. It's kind of like a written conversation.
Mhm.
These notes were not about me at all. So they were really, they were really about these are these are things that I notice and appreciate about you, but not about how I feel in response to those, which is often what people do when they say those things, right? Like they might say, um, you know, I really like Susie because I feel so good about myself when I'm with her. So that's not really about Susie.
Mhm.
That's about, and there's nothing wrong with being aware that when you're with Susie, you feel great about yourself. But I love the opportunity to express to people things that I appreciate, that have nothing to do with me. So I even wrote letters to neighbors, just like, hey, um, you have gorgeous flowers in your garden, and I always enjoy stopping to smell them, and I just want you to know they're appreciated.
Mhm.
Like that's it, totally not. And there was no expectation in that project of any sort of reciprocation. I actually thought of it more as a gift, like
Mhm.
366, because it was a leap year, little gifts to other people. Like I said, just kind of spreading love into the world.
Mhm.
And so that was what that project was. And it was really wonderful. And I loved doing it and doing it as gifts. And as I came into 2025 was approaching, I sort of had this idea of doing something again. And I thought, well, I could do notes again. And you mentioned that I had said when we talked that it's felt sort of one-sided, which was the intention of the notes. But I really noticed for myself lately that I've been what I refer to as cocooning a little more, kind of like in my little space, and maybe not allowing myself as much human connection with people, particularly outside of my own, like my everyday people.
Mhm.
Um, and I recognize that for my own mental and physical health, because there is a lot of research that supports that human connection is vital to our physical and mental health.
Mhm.
For my own physical and mental health, I really wanted to have more human connection, right? Really intentionally as well.
Mhm.
And so, literally on December 30th, I was in the shower and I had this little conversation with myself. And I was like, oh, what if you talk to somebody different every day of the year? And I was like, that is completely ridiculous. How are you going to pull that off?
Right.
And then I was like, who cares? When has that ever stopped you before?
Mhm.
And then here we are. And so
Wow.
the first person who I talked to was my daughter. I asked her if she wanted to be the first person, but literally in a day and a half, I sort of pulled together this idea. And then after that, I sent out emails to people for the first few. And then I built a web page for it so that people would have more information, particularly people who don't already know me, so
Mhm.
that they can go and get an idea of it. They can go and recognize that this is a personal project, that it's not some either thinly or thickly veiled sales call, right? That it doesn't have to feel heavy, that it can just be playful. One of my favorite ones that I've done so far is, one of my friends was like, what about if we get together and just wander around like, a bookstore or another store. And I was like, how about, I love this store. What if we go there? So we literally met up and wandered around this store with no agenda
Mhm.
and chatted.
Mhm.
And it's like connection can come in so many simple ways. I've always loved the idea of errand friends. I don't know if you've heard that term,
Yeah.
right? I always loved having errand friends like, hey, let's go to the grocery store and whatever. It's just
Mhm.
kind of like a buddy. And sometimes connection, just being with other people, again, intentionally, even if you're not involved in a big conversation, that is still feeding our human need for human connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does for sure. I love that. I love that. When you and I talked prior to this, you had mentioned connection ripples, that I don't know, the word, the concept. And so I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what you mean by connection ripples, and then how have you seen this affect your own life or the lives of other people through this project?
Absolutely. I love the idea of connection ripples. In regards to this project, my sort of hope, but I will probably never know, is that, I talk to somebody and I've even had people say like, oh, that really inspires me to reach out to someone else. Or maybe we talk about something and they're like, oh, that inspires me to go read that book, or that reminds me I wanted to share this book with somebody, or whatever it is. So I love to think of it as sort of like our interactions, however long or short they may be with other humans, do have this ripple effect. And often we don't know what it is. And I have completely released any need to know what the ripples may be for it. I just trust that the connection time that I spend with people um is somehow spreading more connection throughout the world. And I really feel like, particularly right now where there seems to be a lot of unrest and a lot of people seem concerned and anxious, and there's a lot of sort of I always think of it as like chaotic energy just in general.
Mhm.
um the idea that probably human connection is what's going to help support humanity at the foundational level.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, with that chaotic energy and I would say the unrest that people are feeling, there's also a lot of isolation. I mean, I know that some companies are going back to the office, but there's still a lot of remote work. A lot of people are using technology to communicate. And so it's really us behind a screen. And so there's this isolation. And then for individuals like myself, as I get older, I don't have children. So there's no almost forced connections, because many times if you have kids, then you might meet the parents of their friends, etc. And so you might have that type of connection, but it may not be like a close friendship, if you will. But there's so much isolation. And so I'm just wondering, like in what are some of the creative ways you found to connect with people, especially in the world that can feel so isolating?
It's a great question. And I agree, it can feel really isolating. And it's amazing to me how even sometimes when we're in a room of people,
Hmm.
we can feel like really lonely and isolated.
Hmm. Yeah.
One of the things that I have done is I will have like virtual movie nights with friends. A lot of my friends don't live locally. So a lot of like my people aren't local. And so like we'll, watch a movie together over chat or whatever and pause it and chat about it. That's one of the things that I've done. I think that you're so right in that so many people are feeling isolated, and amazingly we can feel really isolated, lonely even in a group of people around us. Some of my loneliest moments in life have been in a room full of people, and so even if we do have people around us, we don't necessarily feel kind of that core connection.
Hmm.
um so creative ways, it's so interesting because I don't even feel like they necessarily have to be creative. I think a lot of it, and I'll tell you, Jenny, I am a diehard introvert.
Mhm.
And I was a very, very shy child to the point that I hid under the table at a birthday party when I was a kid because I was so shy and it felt so overwhelming. So it's not like I am somebody who naturally is just out in the world with all of the people and that really charges me up.
Mhm.
So I love to give sort of that piece about myself because
Mhm.
often people meet me, they're like, what do you mean you're an introvert?
Right.
I'm like, we will have an amazing conversation and interaction, and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to get under my weighted blanket with my hot chocolate and my popcorn, and I'm going to recharge.
Yes. Yes.
I love that connection, like we were saying earlier, doesn't have to be, I think the key to it is intentional.
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't have to be really big things. It can be as small as intentional as saying hello to the person in the elevator,
Mhm.
even in New York, if you're in New York, right? Like when I visit New York, I still say hi to people on elevators. And
Mhm.
it's so interesting because while New York, Manhattan, I'm talking New York City, Manhattan,
Mhm.
has this reputation of like nobody ever talks in the elevator and stuff like that. If you actually pause and just say hello and smile at somebody, you can see this wave of recognition that they're suddenly seeing. And through that little tiny moment, you've just created like a moment of connection, right? So that's one of the reasons I do chat up my cashiers when I'm out.
Mhm.
I just try to always ask people, you know, how they're doing. Or one of my favorite questions is, what's good in your world?
Mhm.
Because that's a whole different kind of energy to than how are you doing?
Mhm.
How are you? Fine. That's everybody's things. What's good in your world is almost like this pause also to reconnect with ourself.
Mhm.
And I really do feel like that connection to self is a vital piece of allowing ourselves to connect with others as well. And they feed each other. It's not like you have to have this full, really strong, secure connection with yourself before you can go out and connect with others.
Mhm.
And it's not like you have to go connect with others to create this. It's just this sort of dance
Mhm.
back and forth.
Mhm.
It's not a one-way thing in either way. It really is a relationship,
Mhm.
an energetic relationship. And sometimes no words are even needed. It can be
Yeah.
as simple as the smile or, I mean, you hear people all the time, like, I'm kind of lonely. How do I make friends? And there's all kinds of people out there who talk about, how to make friends and, finding groups of like-minded people and all of these other kinds of things. And I really feel like at the core of all of that is just even giving ourselves permission to open ourselves to connecting with ourselves and others. And I think for a lot of people, that alone can feel really tricky because many people are raised in cultures and environments that kind of teach us to disconnect from ourselves at a very young age and listen to everyone around us. So I
Mhm.
feel like at the heart, there's some of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And if we just are intentional about the tiniest little things, it really builds on itself.
Mhm. I appreciate that. That is, I think that's very powerful. So definitely. How do you choose who to connect with each day? And is there specific criteria or is it more spontaneous? And I guess also I'm just thinking, you know, if people are not good with technology, I know you and I met through Zoom, but if someone's not good with technology, um, do you provide ways where it could just be a phone call or errand buddy or whatever that is?
Sure, absolutely. How do I choose people? Really, they choose themselves. I spread the word about it. There are people who I've reached out to directly. I'm like, hey, we haven't chatted in a while and I'm doing this project and I'd love to chat. Are you willing to be part of it?
Mhm.
And I'm a huge, huge, huge believer in consent for all people. And if somebody's like, no, there's never any pressure, right? I refer to these as very come as you are. I had somebody within the past week show up, literally in pajamas with their baby. And that was awesome. Because again, it's not work. This isn't supposed to look professional. It's not about what do you do? It's not an interview. It's
Mhm.
a conversation.
Mhm.
It's just two people spending time together. I am happy to essentially, if we can figure out a way to communicate, I'm in.
Mhm.
So thus far, pretty much all of my times have been either in person or via Zoom. One of the amazing things about the pandemic is a lot of people, even who aren't particularly tech savvy, used it as a way to keep in connection with people. So it's familiar to a lot of people.
Mhm.
Ideally, our time together is something where we can see each other
Mhm.
because there's so much nonverbal that goes into connection as well. But
Mhm.
if the only thing somebody has is a telephone call, like we can do it. There
Mhm.
aren't a lot of rules. Really, my rule is kind of my personal rule is we don't really talk about religion or politics
Mhm.
because those tend to be topics for a lot of people that can feel really sort of disconnecting
Mhm. Mhm.
and can be a little bit rougher. I'm not somebody who will never talk about those, but it's not really the energy of these calls.
Mhm.
And other than that, I'm like, look, you want to put your 5-year-old on a video with me and I read him a book or chat with him for 15 minutes, I am here for it. I love talking to kids.
Mhm.
I talked with, I had sent out one of the emails I sent out to, I don't know, maybe my clients. I don't even remember exactly. And it said, like, basically, parents who set me up with their, 80-year-old parent. And we chatted for almost an hour.
Wow.
And that particular call concluded with that person reading me a poem they wrote,
Mm.
which was such a neat and like special thing. My experience and observation is every human really, really wants, desires, and needs to be seen and heard. And so I really think of these as an opportunity to spend a few minutes with somebody and be seen and heard.
Mhm.
Like I've said, it's not an interview. The idea is that it's more of a conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me about the project and like what basically like why in the world are you doing this? Or like, what's that like?
Yeah.
But we talk about all kinds of things. And
Mhm.
so that's a big piece of the fun to me because it's not just a specific thing.
Mhm.
It's just kind of like a playground. And then occasionally, if somebody, I have like question cards. So if somebody's like, I really don't know, I'm like, how about if we pull one of these cards
Mhm.
and we chat about the answer to the card? And if we both pull it and don't like the question, we can pull another. Because again, like there's no real rules here, you know?
Right.
The
Right.
rule is, and the rule is essentially, people self-select into it.
Mhm.
I created, as I mentioned earlier, a sign up link and sign up sheet, which helps me keep it organized and also sends to them reminders because um, it's every day of the year.
Mhm.
So people
Yeah.
can sign up. I think it's set up to sign up to 90 days in advance.
Wow.
That said, if somebody came to me now and was like, hey, I would really like to set my call for, I don't know, September 1st because it's my birthday or whatever, I'd be like, great, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so my hope is that people will just continue to share it with other people.
Mhm.
One of the things that's really different about this from the letter writing project that you mentioned earlier is it does require a second person,
Mhm.
right? I can't when I'm writing notes, I could do it at any time. I could do it, to whomever. And there was, like I said, no expectation of acknowledgement or reciprocation of any kind. It was just kind
Mhm.
of a gift forward.
Mhm.
And this project requires people to be willing to participate.
Mhm.
So we're at day, I don't know, 80 something maybe of the year. Um, and I've had a couple of days where, for various reasons, I haven't had like a technical, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
connection time. At least one of those was, I think, because there was, somebody had to cancel, like they had to change it.
Mhm.
Um, one of them last weekend, I intentionally chose not to schedule somebody because I knew I was going to memorial service.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to really sort of share that time to connect with that person who
Mhm.
had died, right, in
Mhm.
my own way and connect with myself. So I
Mhm.
didn't really write it down as it, but I was still very aware of the connection piece of it, and it was intentional.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I have talked to somebody every day this year. And the thing is, a different person as well. People ask me regularly, well, can we talk again? Right? Can we do another one? I'm like, yeah, we can talk again. It doesn't have to be a part of the project. Like we don't have to essentially wait for an invitation or like be part of a project to connect with other people,
Right.
right? I'm not in it to make friends, or I don't have any big goal from it. I'm not planning a book or planning I do have a Substack, and I
Mhm.
write some updates on that partly for myself. I never share people's personal information.
Mhm.
That's not what it's about at all. I write down a few notes after for myself, but there's never anything revealing and really a lot of it's just reflections for me, like,
Mhm.
oh, what am I noticing sort of around that, or more so around this process for
Mhm.
myself?
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for that. Have these connection projects changed your perspective on relationships and community? And if so, how?
That's such an interesting question. I think that really my perspective on relationships and community is what propelled me into these projects.
Mm. Mm.
Um, One of the things that I've recognized about myself is throughout my life how important the idea of connection is, and how it has come up over and over and over in everything that I've done in my schooling, right? Then in the different careers that I've had. The heart of all of it really is this sense of connection to self and others. And so I think, as I've mentioned as well, in my observation, that's really missing for a lot of people. And at times it's missing for me too. And so I can notice, I'm able to notice when it is. Um, I think that that's easier for some people than others to notice when it is, depending on sort of their relationship with self as well.
Mhm.
And I just, if I can find ways to sort of spread this idea of connection and, like I say, spread love, I think of like agape love, right? Just like love for the sake of love
Mhm.
to the world, then I love doing that. It feels good to me, and it gives me hope for the world.
Yeah. Yeah. We need that. We need that love for sure. I
Yeah.
need that love.
Right. Just even this invitation, even if it sparks in somebody the idea that they're allowed to try something different, or,
Mhm.
oh, wow, I don't want to do that. People have asked me also, like, oh, are you going to try to get other people to do this and make it a project for people? I'm like, again, I don't have a big goal. It's
Mhm.
literally a goal to just, each day spread some connection in the world. I don't have some giant goal at this point. Who knows what will happen?
Mhm.
But, if it inspires you to, like, oh, yeah, I could use a little more connection. Well, maybe I'll, go to a restaurant by myself. I have no idea. I'm just making something up.
Right.
Then awesome, right? And then in that you share a smile with somebody, awesome. Like, that's connection.
Mhm. Yeah. Has there been a particular connection that stands out, especially meaningful or transformative from this project?
Well, I loved that my daughter was totally gung-ho to be my first one. My daughter is a senior in high school, so she and we have a really lovely relationship, but just the look on her face when I asked her about being the first one, like it seemed like she was so honored by the idea, which was really lovely. And we talk pretty regularly as it is, but there is just something different about sitting down with somebody intentionally, like we're sitting down intentionally right now
Mhm,
to do this thing. So that was really lovely. I
mhm,
mentioned as well the person who I talked to within the past couple of weeks who read me the poem at the end. That was really neat.
mhm,
Um, they're all so different.
mhm,
That's part of the joy. So, some have been very short, 10 or 15 minutes, which is great.
mhm,
Many have been much longer, but they've all just, because I have been able to release any expectation over it,
mhm,
I'm really able to just show up and be present with whatever is there and just find the beauty in those moments with whomever it is.
mhm. Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. It really is. And I would say if I applied it to myself doing this podcast, I'm meeting all of these new people
Mhm.
and focusing on their stories. And so those intentional moments, it really makes a difference. It really does. So that's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Um, yeah, so really one of the last questions I have is what's next for you after this 2025 project is complete? Do you have any new connection projects brewing?
Um, I don't know. I'm going to be honest, Jenny. I am very much a day by day person.
Hmm.
I have never loved the whole 5 year, 10-year goal approach to life. It's
Hmm.
never resonated with me personally. I know it really resonates with a lot of people. And for me personally, it's never really resonated with me. As I mentioned, the couple of years before 2020 were full of many, many plot twists in life. And that has only continued since then.
Hmm.
So I really am at a place where I try to live very much in the present. I am aware of the past and how things in my own past and in the past have shaped me and, our society and communities and stuff.
Hmm.
And I am aware of the future. My personal future includes my daughter heading off to college this fall. So, that will be a big shift. Um, but I really try to be present in in the now and in the moment, which is one of the things I love about the calls as well, because it's like literally a commitment to be present with somebody,
Yeah.
for a few minutes. And I find for myself that really helps me stay grounded and calmer, less anxious, right? Like more in that rest and digest nervous system, like the
Yeah.
grounded nervous system people have probably heard a lot about, right? Fight or flight, rest and
Yeah.
digest. Um, so, even this project, I didn't, like I said, this project, I just sort of was like, oh, I really want to do something this year. I didn't go into it like, what should I do in 2025? So I'm very much somebody who's also led by their intuition.
Hmm.
I love, love, love to plan things. And then I also have no problem throwing it all out the window and then doing what I damn well please.
All right. Yep.
Right? And so
Yeah.
and so that's really kind of how it is with the projects.
Hmm.
It's kind of like what sparks me, what inspires me. And really a lot of it is just like what calls to me. So
Hmm.
this project literally just sort of like came into my, like I said, I was in the shower and it was like, oh, this is what you should do. And
Hmm.
then I briefly tried to like, I was like, can you really make that happen? It's like, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I don't have, a big plan for the future. Like I've said, even with the calls or whatever, there's not a plan to do a book or whatever. I'm just kind of in it to see where it goes. I'm just kind of like riding the connection ripples of it all, right?
Hmm.
And see what happens because Life is a roller coaster of plot twists, and there is a joy in freedom in just kind of being present with it in the moment without trying to look always at kind of the bigger picture, the what's next.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for people who want to connect with you, can you share your website?
Sure thing. If you just go to www.2025 Connection Project, so that's 2025 Connection Project, no S's.com. It will take you, I created a web page for it, and there's lots of information there, including the link that you can go to sign up. It's completely free, which I did not say earlier. There's no cost. The only cost is just showing up with your time. There's some, basically what you do is you pick a day, and there's only one time listed per day. But that does not mean that's the time that we have to meet. That's basically a way to secure the day. And from there, I will email you within, 24, 48 hours, maybe on the weekend. And we can confirm a time. So if you don't get an email from me, if you sign up, and especially if you should get confirmation email when you sign up. And if you don't get an email from me, please reach out, because occasionally tech does tech things and emails don't go through. Jenny and I even had this happen in our own, conversation. And so I then sent her an email from another, from another one of my addresses. And I was like, hey, you had said you'd send me this information. I haven't seen it. And at the same time, she's like, did send you the information. It didn't make its way to me. This is again like human stuff. So this is a piece too, right? Like just an everyday connection of like trusting the intentions of others, which can be really hard if you're somebody who has some trust issues, like myself. And yet I've opened myself up to really trying to, right, practice trust in others and be like, hey, you said whatever. And so I'm sending you something from another email because I know sometimes the tech gets wonky. And so we connected that way. So again, if you sign up and then don't see an email from me, please reach out and touch base, because it does not mean that I'm ignoring you.
Right.
and just basically you can go on and pick a day, and from there we decide on a time that works for us. Like I said, it's very come as you are. It's very low pressure. You want me to read to your kid? That's awesome. You want to, sing songs together or make up stupid lyrics? I'm here for it. You want to read me your poem? I'm down with it. Your parent, your aging parent, the person who I talked to was in like assisted living as well, you feel like they could really use someone to talk to and tell the stories you're tired of hearing. Amazing. I love it. I love hearing people's stories. So it's like I've said, there's not a lot of rules, and that's part of the beauty. It's just kind of like this playground of connection and exploring. And my only ask is that you come with like some curiosity and just a willingness to see what happens.
Well, there you have it, folks. Really a truly inspiring journey into the heart of human connection. Remember, as we learned today, connection isn't just a fleeting moment. It's a ripple effect spreading outward and touching lives in ways that we may never fully realize. And it's something that we can cultivate starting with a simple conversation or a shared experience. A huge thank you to Lori for sharing her insights and experiences. And to you, the listeners, thank you for joining us on this exploration of human connection. We hope that this episode has sparked something within you, a desire to reach out, connect, and build on your own connection ripples. Until next week on Turtle Optimist, go out and connect. You might be surprised at the beautiful connections you find.